Welcome to this edition of When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, a discussion of sustainable living and what that means to you and me. I am Jay Warmke.
Wow. I'm Annie Warmke.
Hey, that's even better. And today we're going to talk about recent legislation that's going to change the outlook of renewable energy for decades to come, or this really is a BFD.
Oh, you have to say it that way because we're not allowed to cuss.
I know. Well, you know, I'm quoting President Biden on that, and of course,
no, come on, he didn't.
I think he did. Anyway, we're talking, of course, about the Inflation Reduction Act, and I love that title because, at least in my mind, this thing really doesn't have anything to do with inflation or reducing.
I think it has a lot to do with inflation because it's going to provide amazing opportunities for people to get education and change their vocation and have a real job that pays a living.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that.
You've got a career possibility in Washington by stretching education into inflation reduction. But anyway, I think what it has to do with it.
You get educated in order to install or design solar.
I know, but that has nothing to do with inflation. So anyway, the thing it has to do with inflation is they named it that to get the thing passed.
Yeah, I am aware of that.
So
I think
that
that's
works for
good
me.
Marketing.
So let's walk through some of the provisions. I don't want to spend too much time on the things that aren't related to renewable energy, but there are a lot of things in this. The talking points from the White House, they talk about this bill is going to create clean jobs. Okay, we'll touch on that a little bit. It's going to make the tax code fairer. Well, that's all in the eye of the beholder, but we'll talk on that just a wee bit. Going to revitalize American manufacturing. I think to a point, there's some
I think
things
it has
there.
lots of possibilities.
And reduce healthcare costs. So those are the kind of the big picture. This is why what we did is great kind of thing. Now, as far as healthcare costs, taking them sort of in reverse order, currently in the U.S., they're specifically targeting prescription drug costs, and U.S. citizens pay about 2 to 3 times as much for prescriptions as anyone else in the world. And
that's a pretty broad statement, but definitely the
close.
Developed world.
Yeah, but and anyway, there's a reason for that. It's really because Big Pharma has about 1,600 lobbyists focused on making sure that we continue to pay very high costs for prescriptions. And last year they spent $300 million in lobbying. Which amounts to a little bit more than $500,000 per congressman and senator.
That's about right.
And there are 3 lobbyists for each congressman and senator.
You got to keep them happy.
There's more people.
Three shifts in a day.
There's more people to take out to golf than just congressmen.
One of the things it is going to do, which makes a little bit of logical sense to me, is a lot of logical sense, is they're going to look at old folks and say, hey, you need help with hearing aids and you need help with your teeth and things like that, the stuff that they have always excluded. And it's actually the hearing aid stuff. If you are not like have a big problem with hearing or other diseases, you can actually going to be able to, I think, starting in November, buy hearing aids over the counter. This is a big
well, I know,
deal.
but I didn't want to focus on healthcare.
Well, I have to be able to say something.
There you go. I want to get into renewable energy. But
all right, let's get there.
But anyway, I will just say caps Medicare prescription at $2,000. It allows them to begin the process of negotiating drug prices, and it extends the Obamacare benefits. So that's kind of the main healthcare costs associated with this and healthcare provisions. Then under their Make the Tax Code More Fair.
Oh, that's the part I really want to hear.
Yeah, there is
more fair to whom?
Well, I don't know. If this works, it works. If it doesn't, but they're putting in a 15% minimum tax on all corporations netting more than $1 billion.
Yeah, so where was Big Pharma's lobbyists that day? They didn't earn their money.
Well, that's a business expense. So, but you would assume if a company makes a profit of $1 billion, they would pay something in tax. But but that's not
Or
really
give
been the
something back
case.
to the community that's besides something that directly benefits them, like
All
might
right.
help their employees. Hey, there's a novel idea.
So that's something that's in that provision. They're saying that'll raise about 300 billion um, dollars from that provision. Actually, negotiating pharmaceutical prices is going to raise a similar amount, which just blows my mind that the government is paying that much just because they're not allowed to negotiate. And then the thing that's got a bunch of folks really upset is they're giving money to the IRS to actually enforce existing laws.
But they aren't going to
So,
go after the big boys. Come on. We
well,
know it's going to be the little people.
oh, you cynical person,
They are
you.
not business people. They don't cha-ching, think, oh, if we
Well,
go after this person, it's going to raise more money
it's
for the IRS.
supposedly targeted
Okay.
towards that. We shall see.
I have
All right.
little faith.
Okay, so those were kind of the side issues, and it's big. It's big. It's going to
It's
be.
like 400 and some pages or something. I
Oh
think
yeah.
there's a lot more in it than that, but
But
that's the highlights.
so we get into renewable energy, and there's a lot of things in this, and it's like everything that you start looking at a 400-page document. There's a lot of real geeky stuff that makes a big difference, but it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. So
That's
hopefully,
on purpose.
I know it is.
That way it can be spun any way they want to.
So I'm going to try and drill down a little bit, but I'll rely on you to keep me from getting too deep into the weeds
So
on
far
this.
it's not working.
I'm pushing along. We're beyond Obamacare right now
Okay.
and into production tax credits.
All righty, we're going.
So production tax credits.
What does that mean?
Yeah, this is something that's been extended, and it's now extended for wind, solar, geothermal, hydro systems. So all the good systems. And essentially what that means is you can opt as a producer of electricity, in this case, to receive a 1.5 cent per kilowatt hour credit. So like a tax credit.
Who, a person or a company?
No, this is a producer. So you're
producer.
selling electricity.
Oh, when you sell it. So
So-
for every 1.5 cent of the system you sell,
No, for every kilowatt hour you produce, you get 1.5 cents.
through what you sell.
Yeah, when you sell it.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So if I sell you a system, I get 1.5 cents.
No. This is selling the electricity.
Oh,
So
selling
this
the
is for like a utility
electricity.
company.
Oh, now
this is
that
for-
makes a lot more
This
sense.
is for a investor who wants to install a system and then sell the power. Those things would be referred to as power purchase agreements. So what makes this a great big deal is currently the wholesale price of electricity sold from renewable systems is in the 3 cent kind of range
kilowatt hours.
per kilowatt hour.
Mhm.
So they're basically going to give you another 50% on top of that in terms of a tax credit.
I can't wait to see how they're going to hike up the other costs that they
Well-
sock you with.
Well, one of the criticisms that people have of these production tax credits, they're designed to essentially subsidize a product, in this case electricity, when it is not competitive with other technologies. But right now, renewable energy is the cheapest form of electricity that exists. So they're subsidizing the cheapest producer. So then the folks in the coal industries and the natural gas industries are going, hey guys, already we're getting outcompeted, and now you just gave
But
them
they already got their
windfall.
rewards. They already got their Scooby snacks. And this is about time we got to focus on something that's going to really be beneficial.
I know a lot of this stuff I've ranted for many years that the fossil fuel industry has received benefits when they did not need them. And now I get to be hypocritical for being happy that the renewable energy is getting incentives.
Well,
and
I don't think
subsidies.
it's about that. I think it's good to see that the government is switching their mindset and saying we have to encourage this in some way to speed up research and development for better panels, all the things for electric vehicles. That might be even the biggest driving train is, the need for electric vehicles and
Yeah.
what comes, all the paraphernalia and mechanicals and stuff that come with that. That has a big influence on manufacturing if we're going to do it in this country in particular.
Well, I guess I would sum up if I were a policymaker, which thank God I'm not.
No, that's true because
but
I wouldn't want to be
but
here.
what they seem to be doing with this bill is they're saying, okay, renewable energy has come of age. It's already an established technology. We want to use the tax code now to supercharge it because we want a lot of stuff built very, very quickly. It's almost like building the interstate highway system after World War II. We're going to invest, a huge amount of political capital, political investment, money investment into this. Supercharge it. It's already the cheapest. Now it's on sale.
But
And
did
and
they
let's get this thing built. Well, let me finish. And we want it built with American products and we want it built with union labor.
Oh,
And that's what this is
that's the
all
president
pushing
right
for.
there.
Yeah.
But we need unions because
Okay.
people are not protected and corporations don't do the right thing. So let's hope that the emerging corporations that are going to buy into this and get on the shirt tails of it are going to have to be fair to invest in their employees and the neighborhoods and such that those companies live in.
Well, and when I say with union labor, actually the bill is written in such a way that it says you must pay prevailing wage, which is basically union wages, whether you're contracting with a union or not. So that's good in that. I mean, these people are going to be making some significant money. Um, and you will not qualify for any of these tax credits to the full extent unless you're paying prevailing wage.
Well, and the
Um,
government's contracts with a lot of corporations, so I would
yeah.
hope that's in their contracts as
Well,
well.
that is in the federal, but this is anybody who
No, I
wants to
get
get
it.
the
I
credit.
do. And we are seeing a lot more union organizing. It's coming at a dear price to the employees very often, but we are seeing that.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get in a
No,
debate
I
about,
know. So talk to me about or commercial building upgrades.
well, no, I don't want to go there yet.
Okay.
I'm going to walk through these in a semi order here.
All right.
All right. So the production tax credit, as I said, it's 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour. It's good for 10 years. Now you can opt to take the investment tax credit. So the production tax credit is you're being paid for everything you produce. So it's an ongoing revenue stream for 10 years. Or you can take the investment tax credit, which essentially gives you 30% back on whatever you paid to build the system. So if you're
Hey,
building a
that's
solar
a
array,
corporate deal made in heaven
yeah.
because they like to have the next quarter be very profitable.
Well, and some of these things, like the investment tax credit, they also put a provision in that you can actually sell that. So what a lot of these
Oh, you can
corporations are
sell
going to
the
do,
tax credit?
yeah, you can go in and say,
Wow.
let's say you're going to get $10,000 tax credit money back. You're paying $30,000 for the system or whatever, and you could sell that to an investor for say $8,000 and they make a $2,000 profit right off the bat and you get the money before you even start construction of your
Well,
project.
that's really going to encourage a lot of
Well, it
things.
is, although I worry about that a little bit when you start getting to the consumer level where there are going to be a lot of shysters going out there fiddling some deals, paying 50 cents on the dollar for this kind of thing. But before we get into that, let's just remind everybody that you are listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke, reminding you it is indeed the end of the world as we know it.
And thank God.
Thank God. So yeah, the world has just changed. And I really can't emphasize enough how impactful this act is going to be. I mean, it really is transformative from a renewable energy standpoint. I don't know about the rest of it, the tax code and the medical and all that. It sounds nice, but the devil's in the
So, how
details.
vulnerable is this to the next administration? Because that's the thing that I feel concerned about is that it may be fragile.
I don't know.
if it's for 10
A
years.
lot of this stuff is basically tax breaks to businesses. And I think the Republican administration would like a lot of this, but they don't want to be seen as
Right. Well,
supporting renewable energy.
they're 5 years old.
Yeah.
So, but
So
they're going to go home and say, "Look what we did, what
sure.
we brought home to you." And that's even the worst of it.
Well, this investment tax credit applies to businesses. What it does is it says you'll get 30% back on whatever it costs for your system. It applies to your business, it applies to industry, and it applies to homeowners. So this is one of those things that if you're out there thinking about installing solar on your home, and let's just throw a number out there, like let's say the system costs you $20,000 for installing a solar array, which is probably about right for a typical home. So then you're going to get $6,000 back in terms of a tax credit, which is not a deduction, it's a credit. So if you owed $6,000 in tax, now you owe nothing. It's dollar for dollar.
Well,
The
that's interesting because some of these new projects that are coming where, they're building homes and like the state of California says everything has to have solar, then they just build that into the price of the home. If you get
perhaps
it ahead of time, it's like a
perhaps
construction
I don't know
loan.
if it would qualify for a tax credit then. Because it's now a home, not it's built in.
But
Um,
you said that the homeowner could get a tax
yeah,
credit
if they add it,
and
if they
sell it.
add it.
So why wouldn't I sell it to the builder?
Now you're getting into the weeds there. I don't
I
know.
see it
I don't
coming.
know.
I mean, people are going to work these kind of
Well,
deals.
there are other incentives for home builders in this bill. Some energy efficiency credits that
Let's hear
the
more about
homeowners.
that because I
Well,
think
I,
our
I want to
listeners.
finish this because this is the one that applies to most everybody.
Okay.
So 30% retroactive back to the first of this year. So if you had a system installed, you would have been told you get a 26% credit. Now it's 30%. It's good for 10 years, which is this
So you have
is
10 years to take the tax
no,
credit.
no, this credit applies for the next 10 years. So all the way up until 2032, this is in place. And that's been one of the problems with the investment tax credit in the past is they'd only extend it for a couple of years. So the industry never really knew what was going to happen. And
Right.
there was always this kind of sort of Damocles hanging out there saying, okay, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. And then on December 31st,
Right.
they
It's
come in and
not.
say, oh, yeah, we extended it. So now it's good for 10 years. It's also good if you just want to install batteries, it will still count. Then
If
there's
you already have a system and you want
or
to
you don't
upgrade.
have a system. If you just
Oh,
want to
you want to
install
install
batteries,
batteries to have a fallback.
yeah,
Okay.
like a protection against the grid going out
Right.
or whatever. And let's stick on the theme of residential because I think that's what not many of you guys own utilities out there. So residential credits. There's the energy efficiency credit. So if you want to upgrade things like Energy Star appliances or putting in insulation, things like that, you can get up to $1,200 tax credit on that. Up to $150 a year for an energy audit so that you can have that, check out your house, see how bad you're doing. And we talked about the builders things, homes meeting the Energy Star single family new home program can get up to $5,000 credit. If their homes are designed to be better, like 20% more efficient than the average.
Well,
So,
let's hope that that then encourages the government to give money to agencies that work in rural areas where people tend to have very poor homes. They're old and not well insulated. You see a lot of abandoned homes that could be lived in if they just had these kind of upgrades. Instead, the farmer lets it sit there and fall down with all this beautiful material in it.
yeah, well, almost all of these credits, and most of them are in the 30% range when you're talking about investment tax credits and the like. There's two interesting provisions in there. One is if they're built in low income areas, you can get an additional 10%, kind of another bump there. Then there's one that I like to sort of in my mind think of as the West Virginia bump. It
Oh,
says
no.
if it's in an area that traditionally had large workforce who worked in coal, oil, or natural gas.
But that could be Texas, that could be
Could be a lot of places,
Pennsylvania,
or
that could
the
be
Gulf.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Any place they've been fracking,
So we'll see.
Idaho.
We'll see how that works. But anyway, another 10% bump. And then they've got provisions that say if you're using product that's manufactured and mined in the United States, then you can get additional credits. So
So
it
you could
looks
get
like,
like 50%
yeah, that's
credit.
that's what it looks like. If you add up all of these things, you're paying prevailing wages, doing it in a poor area, you're using domestically manufactured product. It looks like you could get as much as a 50% tax credit on a
But
lot
this
of this
has the
stuff.
potential to really spur business because there and not just business itself, but if you think about if you live in an impoverished area, there are a lot of small business people there that if you got a grant from the government, and you started saying, "Okay, we wanna fix these things up," you could do a training program to train people how to do basic fix up. You could hire local businesses, that would need more workers. I mean, you could see a whole trickle down of that system, a true trickle down for that community because a coat of paint and some insulation can change the world.
Sure, and we're already seeing that. I mean, this thing has only passed 2 weeks ago or so, and I'm seeing and getting contacted by people wanting to do workforce development training programs. There are a lot of these things emerging in developing or low income areas. How can we retrain the next workforce? There are a lot of announcements about products, manufacturers who are saying, okay, we're moving our manufacturing facility to the United States. We're going to open up another
Well, because
plant
they
to
know
make
they're
solar
they're gonna
panels.
make cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching
Yeah.
money.
And of course, the grid is going to expand dramatically for electric vehicles. We're basically transitioning the automobile industry from gasoline to electric, and that electric is going to be supercharged through renewable energy. So there are electric vehicle credits as part of this bill. So if you buy a used electric vehicle, you can get up to a $4,000 tax credit. If you buy a new electric vehicle, you can get up to a $7,500 tax credit, which is basically a rebate on the price of your vehicle. And same, there are credits on charging stations. Now, the kicker in all of this is that the batteries have to be manufactured in the United
The
States.
batteries for holding energy.
Yeah, the electric vehicle batteries, and the vehicle needs to be assembled in the United States.
Well, so if you just draw back for a minute and look at the big picture here, you can see that if you just take each of these topics as a whole and then you start to drill down and make little lines that come off of there of how that's going to influence as it reaches the community, as it reaches the customer, as it reaches to the next generation, it has amazing power to
Right.
spur people to do better, not to consume more, but to actually, I would hope, consume less because you have your needs met.
Well, you don't know. I mean, when things get cheaper, people tend to consume more of it.
Well, we aren't saying they're cheaper overall, and not certainly in the long run. Most people don't have $20,000 to put into anything. They
Well,
don't even have $200.
now to give an example of how the electric vehicle is going to be a thing, and a thing pretty quickly, California just announced that they will be banning all gasoline powered cars by the year
Yeah, so
2035.
you can't drive into
I don't know
California.
about, I think it's registering them in California or
Okay,
whatever.
because I
I
was
mean, they
thinking,
can't
well,
put up
that's gonna
roadblocks.
shoot in their own foot, the,
Uh-huh.
travel
Now,
industry.
Texas might do that for the opposite. No electric vehicles are allowed in Texas
Yeah.
or something. But
Well,
anyway,
Ohio's trying. They're
no,
charging a lot of money, as a tax when you get your license
sure.
because you're not paying gasoline tax, which is not true for hybrids.
Yeah, well, another big deal in this bill is that nonprofits have typically been excluded from taking advantage of tax credits because they don't pay taxes. So organizations like churches, civic groups, governmental agencies, even utilities like co-ops and municipal power companies, which are all nonprofits, have not been incentivized to do this. Well, now those entities can receive this back not as a tax credit, but as
a payment.
Like a rebate. So
this is what I'm saying. It's like it for me, it maybe not so much the electric companies, but certainly the nonprofit pieces. A lot of religious organizations have their hand in the government till. And this is amazing to me because it has the potential to really do some good in poorer communities. And that's a lot of this country. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday that lives in Washington, D.C., and he was saying when he came to Zanesville the first time, he was shocked. He got off the bus and he said, this is really what America is this little town, McConnellsville, this little town, and all these things that surround it. This is how most of this country lives. And I think that this bill has the potential to reach those people. I want to be encouraged that that's going to happen.
Yeah. And like I said, this is a BFD, man. Anyway, so lest we say that it's all sweetness and light.
Well, I wasn't thinking that, but I was wanting to find some hope somewhere.
Well, okay. Well, there is some provisions for the oil and gas industry in here as well.
Of course.
And it basically says that you gotta lease public lands for oil and gas. It's essentially saying if you want to lease public lands for wind and solar, then you must have demonstrated in the year prior that you've made available 2 million acres of land and 60 million acres of offshore to leases for oil and gas.
Yeah, but most people don't own that much.
No, this is the government is making this available. And but the costs for leasing have been increased in this bill. And some folks are looking at that going, you know what? It doesn't say they got to be leased. It just says made available. And if you push the price too high in comparison with renewable, there just won't be a demand for it. So,
well, I hope that's true.
So
I
that's
hope that
the plan.
Does happen.
Other people are saying, you know what? Because you're making these available now, domestically, there may not be a demand, but
yeah, we're going to sell
internationally,
it to somebody
now
else.
we're going to export.
However, local laws and local regimes, there's a lot of that, could make it more difficult by adding their own taxes. The government says they have the right to eminent domain to claim land for the good of the many. But they can't, I don't think, stop them from charging them an arm and a leg. And we all saw from fracking that a lot of that went to hell in a handbasket because they couldn't afford to keep getting paid so poorly for the barrel of whatever they extracted.
Well, and the government did add or put back in a 16.5-cent excise tax on every barrel of oil. So anyway, this is transformative.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you have been listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke. We want to thank our Emmy Award-winning producer, Adam Rich, and we want to thank you for just spending a little bit of time with us. And as your grandmother hopefully told you, the secret to a happy and sustainable life is...
play nice with others, clean up your own mess, and get some solar energy.
All right. Till next time.
We'll sing, and her children will be see the morning glory blossom in the night. Know the stars are dancing in the twilight. Soon we'll be together, all will be revealed. Mother Earth will sing, and her children will be
You can find more information on living sustainably in our unsustainable world at bluerockstation.com.
yeah.